What is up, gaming Gertrudes? Today I'm coming at you with an all-in-one video about Overwatch 2's newest hero, Hazard. Blizzard did a limited time playtest over the weekend where players had a chance to try him, and you already know, your boy spent most of the weekend doing exactly that. I played him for 3 days in private matches with teams averaging Diamond to Masters with a few GM players sprinkled in. So I'll be going over questions varying from kit basics to more advanced tips and tricks I picked up, my thoughts on his strengths, weaknesses, who he's good with, bad against, what needs buffs, nerfs, and is he fun? All that in today's video. Without further ado, let's take it from the top. First up is his weapon called Bone Spur. It's a shotgun weapon with damage slightly more than Doomfist. Get ready because we're going to make a lot of comparisons to Doomfist in this video. A unique quality that it has is that the spread is in the shape of a horizontal rectangle. Personally, I didn't find the shape to be too gimmicky. It works well against close and or wide heroes, and a bit harder against thin and far heroes, but that's pretty much how most shotguns work. It is one of the weaker shotguns, but rightfully so, because the rest of his kit is anything but weak.
Oh my god, that was gross.
Let's talk about his passive. It's called Volt, but really, it's just a budget wall climb. Hazard can climb to high grounds just like any other wall climber. The only difference is he can't climb as high. There's a running joke in the Overwatch community that only the Japanese heroes can wall climb, so him having a wall climb has everyone confused because very clearly the guy is Scottish. Some people say he might just have a distant ancestor from Japan. Others say that he's adopted, but my theory is his parts were made in Japan. I'm really hoping that one catches on. Anywho, I do like the fact that we now have a wall climbing tank, and I think that the extra maneuverability scales well the more skilled you are, because not only does it create more entry points, but it also serves as an escape and a movement mix-up. There's also this cool thing you can do with this wall climb, where you can infinitely climb from side to side on certain walls.
You could infinite it.
Could be a bug, could be a feature, who knows. What I do know is, if it sticks around, there's going to be a lot of funny rollouts, but likely some broken ones too. Something that is for a fact a bug is wall climb fails.
Wait, wall climb? What the hell happened?
This ability sometimes stops working halfway through or just doesn't work at all, making it incredibly frustrating to try and play around. I mean, it's to the point that I'm probably going to throw up a counter for games lost to wall climb fail. I might even make a montage and throw some fitting music over it. To clarify, this bug is nothing new. Wall climbing has always been buggy, but now that we have our 4th wall climb hero, it's not just a little bug. It ain't no ant. No, this is a big, nasty German cockroach, and likely one of the biggest bugs in the game. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. It's probably not an easy fix, otherwise they would have fixed it 8 years ago, but it's definitely a needed fix. Moving on, we've got what I consider to be the centerpiece ability in his kit. It's called the Violent Leap. This is an ability like Winston's Jump Pack or Doom Slam. However, there is a lot of depth, but we'll start with the 2 major separations. The first is the Slash. While leaping, you can choose to trigger the Slash for some pretty beefy melee damage and also a slight knockback. It's worth noting that slashing also slows your momentum and adds a short little hop. I mentioned this because I found it useful as a mix-up to confuse enemies, but also as a little extra height to get higher grounds. The second difference with his leap is bro's got no hops. It just can't go up half as high as the other leap abilities, nor do I think it should. Despite being a very similar ability, I think rules like this do a good job of making it feel fresh and not like an outright better version of older abilities. The cooldown is 5 seconds, making it as short as Winston's, but 1 second shorter than Doom's. There's a sentiment that the cooldown should be increased, but I disagree because mobility is just fun. If a dial needs to be turned down, it should be elsewhere. However, there is one point of concern with his leap, and that's the must-know tech. What you do is hold jump while leaping, and when Hazard lands, he'll do what's called a B-hop. This B-hop conserves momentum from the leap, but it also extends the slash for the remainder of that hop. B-hopping isn't a tech exclusive to Hazard. You can do this on most movement ability heroes, but the continuation of the slash is really a game changer because it flat out increases the distance from which you could use slash. I really like using this tech and hope to see it stay, but at the same time, it's pretty impactful for something unintended, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it gone. One last note with Violent Leap is that it resets his wall climb, so you could climb, leap, and climb again and pretty much get to any high ground in the game. Next up, I want to talk about his Jagged wall ability. This is a projectile that deploys on a surface and spawns in a that big purple rock. Enemies within very close proximity of this spiky rock are dealt a small amount of damage and a knockback. It could be destroyed by user or by enemies shooting it a little bit. I like this ability a lot. Not just because I finished 50 Hours of May recently, but because there's so many different ways to use it. You can wall off an enemy, you can wall off heals, you can wall for cover, you can wall for high ground, you can wall to boot people in or out, you can even wall to set up a rollout from the top ropes. These are just some of the things you can do with it, and the list goes further. But I want to highlight one of my favorite things about it that I believe has gone over most people's heads, and that's that this ability gives him outplayability versus stuns. If you leap in versus an Ana, normally you'll get put to bed. But if you have a good read on when she uses sleep dart, you can predictably wall to avoid it. You can do the same thing with almost any CC. The catch is if you mistime it or get red, then you lose a long cooldown and potentially get punished. So there's actual risk and reward and not a simple I press button, I win. If you want an example of press button equals win, just think about Ana with all her cooldowns versus Orisa with all her cooldowns. Yeah, grandma is going floating down the river. So needless to say, these risk and reward scenarios are really good for the game and actually make it a game, which is what I tried to say sometime back when I made my video titled The Problem with Tanks. One last thing I'll mention with his wall is that there is an option to confirm wall placement. If you care about being optimal, then don't use this for two reasons. First reason being, the extra input to confirm just delays how quickly you deploy it. The second reason is the projectile is crosshair accurate, which means it'll go exactly where you aim it, so you shouldn't need the extra visual. Let's move on to what I think is the likely to be tuned ability, Spike Guard. This ability is a block ability similar to both Doomfist and Ramatra's in that it reduces damage taken from the front. It starts to diverge from there. For starters, it's on a resource rather than a cooldown. Furthermore, all enemies within the short cone radius in front of Hazard are dealt damage by these homing needles, and as a final bonus, using this ability slowly replenishes ammo. Overall, block can be fun to use since it makes what's usually a boring and defensive play like blocking feel impactful and rewarding. The problem is, it might be doing those things too well. A lot of people do not enjoy getting auto-aimed to death, and considering the mitigation is about the same as the other heroes with block, I'm more inclined to think that there's a problem with the damage and or the resource. So if they decide to nerf him, I think it'll probably be a numbers tweak on this ability. Finally, let's talk about his ultimate, Downpour. So basically, Dude Bro shoots these needles from his back up to the heavens, and they come falling down from the sky. They then do damage and root enemies in radius, regardless of cover. So if you're behind a wall, in a building with a roof, it's still gonna get you. The root effect works almost exactly like Junkrat's trap. Enemies can shoot and use most abilities, they just can't move for a few seconds. So my thoughts are, in an open area, it could be avoided, and even more so if the avoiders have mobility, but with good timing and setup, it's reasonable to catch people off guard. And you know what? I gotta say the damage is not to be slept on. I've gotten a pretty solid amount of finishes on Genji's dashing out or even Kiri's TPing through walls. As far as tank ultimates go, I'd rate this one above average. Good ultimate, seems OP, but in my opinion, it's fair. Now that we're done with his kit, we can get into his matchups, specifically the bad ones. In the tank category, I found that Hazard struggles most with Sigma, Diva, and Orisa. You might have noticed the trend. They all have a make damage disappear ability. The worst offender is Diva. Not only does hers last longer than an ED joke, but she has the mobility to babysit Hazard 24/7. This is the most annoying of the matchups, but I wouldn't say it's the worst because even though she stops a lot of his damage, in doing so, she's stuck making defensive plays. So in reality, Hazard can still take space for the team. He's just gonna have to rely on them to do the damage. Sigma can be the most difficult at times. So the eat is one thing, but the rock is pretty easy to hit. And what makes getting hit by it worse is the fact that he can shield off your heals. Orisa is on the list for similar reasons. She's got the spinning super suck, spear to stun, and she's by far the hardest to kill thanks to all that armor and fortify. But that's not the worst because usually on this hero, you're not trying to kill the tanks. On the DPS side of things, the worst matchup is Sombra. Hazard is a very easy hack target, and doing so stops guard, leap, wall climb, and since the recent rework, she's just hard to catch. Besides Sombra, Torbjorn's turret is an an obstacle, Torb's armor is an obstacle, and Torb's shotgun is just better. Sojourn builds free rails and has decent mobility for avoiding hazard. Honorable mention goes to Bastion because, once again, armor but also turret, but really you just have to bait out the turret. In the support category, there's two heroes. Best overall pick is Brig. Whipshot is easy to hit, it heals, it has a short cooldown, and can completely shut down and engage. If you make it past the Whipshot, then the shield and armor makes it nearly impossible to kill her in one clip, and then lastly, shield bash out is a solid disengage. The other support pick I'd say can be an easy counter is Zenyatta. Even though Zenyatta himself is a liability, if he's protected by say a Sigma that hits rocks, then Discord becomes Hazard's death sentence. Honorable mention in the support category is Ana. Sleep Dart can be decent, but unlike Doomfist, he has a pretty fair chance of outplaying it. The rest of the hero roster either favors Hazard or plays out about neutral. Moving on to synergies. Like most mobile tanks, this hero benefits from having DPS that can follow up and or force cooldowns. Just to name some, we've got Tracer, Venture, Genji, Reaper, Echo. Basically, mobile heroes are ideal because it makes Hazards go in and get out playstyle easier. I know the first thing that came to everyone's mind is Mei for the double wall strats, but honestly, it's overrated. I mean, on most maps, if you use wall right the first time, then you shouldn't need a second wall. What I will say though is her ult combos really well with his ultimate, so that could make it worth it. As for supports, I'd say anything goes as long as they can stay alive. Hazard has pretty good damage and utility to peel for supports, but ideally he shouldn't have to babysit them either, so just pick accordingly. Besides that, he can get stuff done with Nano Boost and does pretty good with Kitsune. So, is Hazard good? Well, he's basically an easier to pick up Doomfist with a higher skill ceiling. On this patch, the only reason you would still pick Doomfist is for Empowered Punch. Otherwise, Hazard does everything safer and with more depth. If I had to balance the future of tanks off of one of these heroes and then the other one gets thrown into a volcano, then all I can say is, I hope they pass on the gauntlet. Putting that aside, he might just be the best tank on the roster when it comes to forcing out cooldowns and not instantly dying for it. That's a strong attribute to have, and for those reasons, I'm rating him a 9 out of 10. Not quite broken, but likely overpowered. Okay, that's cool and all, but how fun is Hazard gaming? Mobility, skill, outplayability, and he's strong? If I'm being completely honest, I didn't think they could make a tank this good. This hero might have just made me unretire from tanking. With all that being said, Hazard is a 10 out of 10 is what I would say if he wasn't actually a 9.5 out of 10. Yep, I'm deducting half a point until they fix how inconsistent wall climbing is. Besides that, amazing hero, and I can't wait to play him more next season. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of Hazard's kit. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you get more of them. And that's all for this video. As always, thank you for watching and good luck on the grind.